Hello everyone, it's Lindsay, and today I'm back with another Bible journaling process for you guys. I am trying super hard to be on top of things for the month of June and have lots of videos for you guys and stay up to date on the kits and things as you guys are working through them. So I'm getting an early jump start on the newest kit from Illustrated Faith. This is Big Story. This is June's kit. I do have an unboxing. I will link it down below for you guys. It is still in stock. They do also have the digital option if that's more your speed, so you can check out that unboxing down below. So I know I'm jumping in a little bit early, but I wanted to give you guys some inspiration and get a head start so that I don't fall behind. Hopefully, that's my plan. So this devotional was written by Jillian. Hello, Jilski. I just adore her, and I adore her writing already. I'm super excited to work through this kit. So I just took some quiet time to work through the beginning parts of this devotional. I love that she does this little plot section and just kind of gives you an overview of not only what she's going to cover in the devotional, but just a really quick run through of the plot of the Bible and what it's intended for and kind of the purpose of it, just briefly but quickly. And I love that she does that. Whether you are a brand new believer, brand new to Bible journaling, brand new to the Bible, whatever it might be, this is great for you. If you are a veteran Bible journaler, Bible studier, whatever it might be, this is a good little refresher and just a good, concise way to look at it. And I constantly need the reminder that the Bible isn't about me. It's not a rule book for me. It's not written about me. It's about God and his love for us and how he restored his relationship with us through Jesus, and that is the main focus. And so that is what I kind of wanted to journal about for the entry. And so as I jump into the first section of her devotional, and I kind of talk about that in the unboxing, how this one's laid out a little bit differently than past kits we've seen from Illustrated Faith, but she has us camped out in Genesis 1 and 2, so right in the beginning. And for the journaling prompt down here, she actually says to consider flipping to your favorite Bible verse or verses and journal what you learned to be true about God. I'm going to save that for another entry, and I'm going to just back up, and she has us look at Genesis 1 and 2 and kind of pull out the words, phrases, or imagery that's repeated, the way that God speaks. God's a communicator who engages his creation, and just have us kind of looking at how 1 and 2 is written. And I just kind of wanted to document that. Now I know Genesis, this first page in Genesis, may be something that a lot of you guys have already journaled. I'm working in a fresh, brand new interleaved Bible. I only have one entry in here, but you could very easily do something similar to what I'm doing today as a tip-in and just add it into your Bible. You could do it in a separate notebook, a faith planner, something like that. So don't feel like you have to just skip these prompts or not journal them if you already have something journaled on the page. There's lots of different creative ways to add things into your Bible or journal in other areas, and so you take advantage of that. But I am going to be working in my interleaved Bible today. And I've gone ahead and done a little bit of prep work before I turned on the camera. I pulled out a couple of the printables that I had picked up to go along with this kit. I showed that in my unboxing video, and I've already cut some of those out that I know that I want to use. Definitely going to be using the stamp set, so I've grabbed some inks. If you're curious about what colors I'm using, I do have all the color swatches over on my blog. I will link that blog post down below, and you can check that out. So I'm just using the colors that I had color matched to the kit. Some more printables. This whole kit is kind of themed around a sewing, stitching, quilting theme, because we're looking at how the story is weaved through the Bible. And so I definitely want to incorporate some texture, some embroidery threads, some stitching. So I'm going to show you a couple different ways to do that. So I pulled a couple of those out, and I already went ahead and typed out my journaling, and I wanted to leave it here so you could see how I do this. I do have the We Are Memory Keepers typewriter. I know many of you have asked for a review of that typewriter. There's lots of reviews out on YouTube. I am not an expert about it. I just stick stuff in it, type it, and it's good. I don't know that it needs a whole 30-minute review video, but if you guys have questions about that, maybe that's something we can look at down the road. But for things that are wonky shaped or kind of small, this is how I run them through my typewriter, and this would work for any typewriter, I would think. So I just loosely taped one of those ephemera pieces from the kit onto just some copy paper, and then ran it through my typewriter. I did make sure that I rubbed the washi tape on the back of my hand first before applying it. That way I don't have to worry about it tearing the cardstock piece that I typed on. I did make a little mark where I knew some of my die cuts and stuff were going to be. That way I make sure I don't type over in that area, and then I just run that through my typewriter. I have found that the We Are Memory Keepers typewriter can be a little fussy if you stick things that are too thick, so I do attach it to copy paper, not another piece of cardstock, because it can be kind of fussy. But that's how I got my journaling on there, and I'm just reflecting on just remembering that God is the author, the illustrator, the editor, and ultimate creator of not just me and my life, but everything. And it's not about me, it's about him, and my life is here to glorify him. And so I don't know about you, but I constantly need to remind myself of that because I'm human, I'm sinful, I can be a little selfish sometimes, and so I need that reminder. So that is going to be my journaling, and then I just have a few other items that I pulled out to kind of incorporate in here. I am going to prep the page with some white gesso. I just prefer to work on a white background. I've been kind of spoiled with the illustrating Bible, so I am going to prep with that. The inks I'm using today don't necessarily bleed through, but this will make sure that nothing bleeds through. Not that I care about bleed through, but it'll just make sure everything is good to go. So let me go ahead and put you guys on fast forward, and we will put this entry together. Okay, so I'm going to start with my gesso. Like I said, I am going to apply 2 just thin layers, messy layers of this onto the page. I'm not worried about bleed through. This is more just that I want a white background. I do have a Tip Tuesday that compares some different page prep mediums and gives you some different techniques for application if you have questions about that. I know many of you really are concerned about bleed through and don't want bleed through to happen. And so page prep is just something that you are signed up and ready to do. I don't particularly love to prep my pages. I'd rather just jump right in, but I am kind of enjoying having white backgrounds, so I am doing it for that sake. But you can find more information about page prep in that video. I'll link down below. So I applied 2 layers, dried it, and then now we're moving on to the printable pieces. And I like to do just a few things to printables just to kind of dress them up a little bit. So I have this tag piece, and I'm pulled out this large number stamp set. I don't think it's available any longer, but if it is, I'll link it down below. I stamped it using some Versa Magic ink. If I thought about it, I could have applied clear embossing powder while that ink was wet, but I didn't think about that at the time. So my ink is dry, but that's okay. I'm just going to go in and stamp right over the top of that number with some Versamark ink, which is a clear sticky ink. But again, you could skip that Versamark step if you caught it while the ink was wet. But I'm just going to apply some clear embossing powder. All this is going to do is add kind of a shiny, plasticky top coat to that number. And I could have just left it as it was with the ink, but sometimes I feel like printables can be a little bit overwhelming with paper if you're using a lot of printable pieces or a lot of die cuts and there's no textures to them, like embossing or gold foiling or glitter or something on them just to break them up a little bit. So just by adding this clear embossing powder over that ink, just dresses up this piece a little bit more than just plain cardstock. Also, clear embossing is a great staple item because you can stamp in whatever color that you want and then clear emboss it, and it'll be just the same as if you had colored embossing powders. So rather than, investing in 100 different colors of embossing powder, you can just have a bunch of different colored inks and then clear embossing powder, and then you just get more bang for your buck there. So before I stick that down, I am going to continue to dress up these printables just a little bit. I mentioned in the unboxing video that I thought it'd be cute to add some embroidery floss to these little cross marks on this title piece. So that's what I'm doing here. I just use a little pokey tool to pre-poke my holes. That just makes it a little bit easier to work with and ensures that my cardstock doesn't tear while you're poking the needle through. But really, really simple, just stitching a couple of little crosses right across where it's printed on the cardstock. And again, that's just going to add some texture, dress it up a little bit. This page is super heavy with printables and cardstock pieces. So if I don't do things like this, it's going to be very flat, which is fine. If I don't have time, I'm totally okay with that. Printables are great for that. You can just cut them out, stick them down, you got a page, you're good to go. But if I have a little bit more time, I do like to take the time like this to add a few embellishment items to the printables just to dress them up a little bit. So I'm pulling out more of that floss, and this I'm going to loop through the tag here. You could also use some ribbon and just fold over some ribbon and just have like a chunky element at the top of the tag. Not a functional tag. I don't need it to have that on there, but again, it's just adding some layers and textures to this, what would otherwise be a pretty simple entry. So I tied that off, and then now I can start kind of adhering things down as I see, kind of where I'm going to be sticking my stamping and things like that. So I start from the back to the front. So I'm going to stick this piece here down first, and then just like a cake, start adding my layers. So as I hold that together, I can add my little messy nest of this thread. And I'm trying to keep in mind my colors. I'm wanting to have a good balance of the blues, yellows, pinks, and this aqua color. So I didn't have any aqua quite yet, but I knew I was going to have an aqua sticker on the right side of the page. So that's why I went with the aqua colored embroidery thread here to pull in a little bit more of that into this cluster. So I've separated the embroidery floss. It has multiple strands. I just divided it in half. And then I am just really messily creating kind of an intentional little nest of thread here underneath this tag. It doesn't serve a purpose. It's just going to add a little bit more of the color in this cluster over here. And then I'm just using the adhesive on the back of the tag to hold down that embroidery thread. And then same thing for all of these, just going to stick them down. Because I'm working in an interleaved Bible and not a coil-bound Bible, I'm not going to pop things up on foam adhesive. I'm going to keep this relatively flat. My plan right now for this Bible is to be my going to church Bible for a little while, so I'm not going to stick any tabs up and out of the top. I'm not going to let it get too super fluffy. I know, I'm saying this now, mark my words, give it 6 months, and this thing will be a big, fat mama, chunky Bible, because I just can't hold back. But for now, we're going to try to keep it relatively flat. So I just pulled out some of those alpha stickers that came from the kit to finish out my title, and then I also pulled out the Pepper Alpha stamp, which coordinates with those stickers. They're just slightly smaller. So my title will say, Big Story for His Glory. So I just wanted to remind myself that it's a pretty big story, but it's not for me, it's for God. I really need that reminder sometimes. So I did stamp that in archival ink, and because I prepped my page, I don't have to worry about that bleeding through. I did double check. It looks like that stamp set is still available in the Illustrated Faith shop, so it'll be linked down below for you guys. So now we can start adding some stamping, and this is just going to fill in some of the blank areas that I have. Working with these quilting pieces, I found it easier to have them all loaded up ahead of time onto my blocks. So I'm putting one on each end on each side of the block. So there's 2 on each block, and then I can just kind of jump around and mix and match the different colors and styles of stamps. I may do a tip Tuesday on this. I did mention it in my unboxing video. I did see that Shauna posted in her Instagram, and then I saw, I think Heather from the team was going to do some stamping as well. So it may have already been covered. If you feel like you need it covered again, let me know, and I will definitely do a tip Tuesday next week for it. But I do find it helpful with this particular stamp set to maybe pre-stamp these quilting designs in the different combinations. That way you're not having to think about it as you work on your page. Because right here, I'm cutting out and editing out a lot of my humming and hawing because I was trying to decide how I wanted to layer these different elements. They all kind of nestle together and create different combinations. And so if you pre-stamp those out on a scrap piece of paper and just hang on to that, then you don't have to think about it. You can just sit down, create, it'll go faster, and you can stamp. But I'm kind of having to pick and choose how I want to do them. And I'm also trying to keep in mind my colors. I'm trying to balance out and have an equal amount of the colors that I've used so far. And I start with the larger elements, and then I go back in with some smaller elements like these crosses to fill in any awkward spaces. And in the end, I'll show you how I extra cover in any awkward empty spaces. But I'm just sticking with all Versamagic inks, but you could stamp these with Neocolor 2 crayons, with distress paints, distress oxides. I have all kinds of different mediums over on my blog post, and you could really use any and all of those to do a similar technique on a page like this. So I'm adding a little bit of stamping, kind of creating a triangle here. So there will be a couple things stamped in the bottom left-hand corner, kind of that right center area, and the top left-hand corner here. And that's just a visual element, creates that triangle, helps your eye kind of flow and bounce around the layout that I have going here. And again, just being mindful of the colors that I'm using and trying to incorporate an equal amount of those and just fill in, you know, wherever I see an awkward blank spot or if I'm missing a particular color. That's kind of what's going through my head as I'm sticking these down. Now, because the page is prepped with gesso, you want to make sure that you extra dry the chalk ink really well so that it doesn't smear. So as a final step for this page, I'm going to add some black paint splatters. I know, what is a page without some Lindsey splatters, right? And that's just going to help fill in any blank areas and bring in some more of that black from my typing and from that little bit of stamping that I did. So one thing I really like about the Interleave Bible is it has this extra little margin space over here. And so I actually like to apply a piece of the kit washi to that space. That way when I'm flipping through my Bible, I can tell by the washi tape which entries go together as a kit. Sometimes I can't always tell with the embellishments that I use or the titles or the content because I kind of mix and match things. So that washi tape gives me just a real quick visual indicator of which entries go with which devotional. And then here I was kind of humming and hawing where to stick this badge sticker. I actually was going to stick it off the edge and use it as a tab, but then I was like, no, Lindsey, you told yourself that you're not doing tabs. So I scooted it in. We'll see. Let's take bets. How long do we think before I throw a tab onto a page in this Bible? I don't think I lasted very long in my last Interleaved Bible, so we'll see what happens. I had a couple of these little word fetty pieces already cut out, so I'm just going to stick those down. They say in the beginning and creation, just little theme words. I'm just wanting to be intentional about trying to use up my printables when they're printed. So I just went through and found anything that had to do with this set of verses and stuck it on the page. That way it's not just sitting, taking up space in a drawer somewhere. Finished it off with a date, and that is going to be it for today's entry. You can see no bleed through on the back there. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave those down below. Check out the description box for links to everything that I used today. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and be sure to subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. You can click on that bell notification button, and it'll notify you every time that I have a new video on my channel. And until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.